Hi, I'm Neil.
Hi, I'm Jeanette.
And
welcome aboard Echo Echo.
Hi folks, well we've been aboard now for 10 months I suppose. We're starting to, I think, really appreciate just how fortunate we were when we bought this boat, because when we bought it we didn't know what we didn't know, and there's a lot to know. We're getting to grips with it now, and I think we're really starting to appreciate some of the fantastic features on this boat that had been built in by previous owners post-factory. And there's a big difference between what it takes to make a production boat, a comfortable long-term liveaboard cruising boat, and just one straight out of the factory. And we got lucky, I think. So what are we going to have a look at today, Jeanette?
Well, I think it's basically about introducing ourselves and also about sharing our boat Echo Echo with you, and sort of highlighting how we've made it a liveaboard home, and the features that it has that makes it a good blue water cruising boat, or almost. We're almost ready to start our adventure to cross the Pacific, so we're getting pretty close to feeling comfortable that Echo Echo can take us lots of places around the world.
So one of the features we're trying to achieve with these video series is to make it easier for people who come in behind us. I know there's a lot of people our age who are contemplating this kind of lifestyle and perhaps don't have a lot of experience. So we're hoping that you can learn from the things that we've had to learn, sometimes easily, sometimes not so easily. So let's start by going for a walk through the boat. We'll go down below first of all, show you some of the salient features, and then we'll go up top. So okay. Here we go. One of the modifications that's been made to this boat is up on the sharp end, the bow handling, the anchor handling system, and I'll just come around here. What they've done is they've extended it out probably a foot, 18 inches forward of the bow, and it has this supporting strut there as well. One of the reasons for that is these modern boats tend to have a more plumb bow than the older style boats. So when you're raising the anchor, if the boat's bouncing around a bit, once the anchor comes out of the water, it tends to get a bit of a swing on. By having the extension out there, it keeps it a little bit further away from the bow, which protects the bow a little bit more. Right, now we're on the foredeck. Let's have a look at our anchoring gear. On this boat we have a primary anchor, which is a 60-pound Manson Supreme, I believe manufactured in New Zealand, like most good stuff. The secondary anchor is a 45-pound plough. The Manson Supreme we found to be an absolutely phenomenal anchor. The only place that we haven't been able to have a lot of success with it is in seagrass, and I'm not that sure of anything that really holds you in seagrass except perhaps a lump of concrete. We've had a couple of times where I thought the anchor's been snagged, and on closer inspection it simply buried itself so deeply that it was halfway to China. So it's a great anchor. One of the things that's most important with anchoring, and you see a lot of boats that don't use this, and I'm not sure why, is to seize the anchor pin or the shackle pin onto the shackle, so that should the pin come undone for any particular reason, and this really happens a lot with stainless steel anchors, not so much with the galvanized ones, but if the pin comes undone, you might find yourself anchored solely with the chain rather than the actual anchor. And we'll have a look at the seizing that we've got on this chain here, if we can get right in close there. It's nothing more than a piece of light stainless steel wire, and the same on this anchor. just to hold the pins in place. One of the other features on this boat, now that we're down here, is when the windlass is set back from the bow rollers, as the chain's paying out, it'll often bang up and down, gouging holes in the fiberglass deck. It's been resolved on this boat by this massive stainless steel plate, which has an equal and opposite backing plate underneath to form a really, really strong part of the boat. Attached to this is this really strong bow cleat. This is where I attach my anchor snubber, and I'll also wrap the anchor chain around there as well, so that all of the weight of the anchoring is happening on the foredeck, none of the weight's being transferred to the windlass at all. The windlass is simply for getting the anchor up and down. You see that as a mistake in a lot of boats. Now let's move back and have a look inside the anchor locker. The anchor locker in this boat, post-factory, has been segregated into two compartments with a board in place there. The forward compartment is where the secondary anchor chain and rode goes. The aft compartment is where the primary chain goes. We also have a deck wash system in here, which you could take it or leave it. I'm not, we've got it, which is fantastic. If I didn't have it, I probably wouldn't bother installing it. In this locker, we also have this ball. This is used to chain the anchor if you're in a coral situation and you don't want your chain to snag over the coral. It provides a float for the chain to keep it off the anchor. Sorry, to keep it off the coral. It can also be used if there's a possibility you think your anchor might get fouled, if you're anchoring in an area with car bodies and whatever. There's also rubbish hanging down below or some rocks. You can anchor your put the float on the end of your anchor to use as a trip line if necessary. That's the anchor locker. Moving back. One of the most important retrofitted features on this boat, in my opinion, is our inner forestay. This is where we carry a much heavier jib than the Genoa. It's a relatively small sail, very high cut, so that when it's deployed, if we take any green water over the bow, it's not going to land in the sail and potentially rip the sail. Has another feature here. It's on a furler, but in addition to that, higher up we've got a set of reefing points, very similar to slab reefing on a mainsail. And the reason for that is if we blow out the tack or we blow out the clew, we can simply lower the sail a little bit and deploy a secondary tack and a secondary clew. The sail would be smaller, but as a backup to the furler. If I was to be building this boat myself, I probably wouldn't have a furler on here. I'd have a hank sail. That way I can easily change to an even smaller storm sail if need be. And I would also have this on a high field lever so that the stay itself could be moved back. The reason for that is, with this setup, the slot between the two headsails is relatively small. So if we're trying to tack the Genoa, we find the best way of doing it is to furl it in most of the way, tack the boat, unfurl on the other side. A bit of a slow, cumbersome process. You wouldn't want to use that if you were racing around the buoys or doing lots of short tacking, that's for sure. But it's not so much of an issue on this boat. One of the things that this creates, though, is because this inner furler is not your traditional cutter style stay, which this one goes to the masthead rather than to the upper spreaders. So we haven't worked out what this boat is. It's not a traditional cutter, and because we have the inner forestay, it's not a traditional sloop. One of the things this boat has, which is fantastic, a whisker pole. This is a telescoping whisker pole, which is a bit of a luxury. The telescoping thing's not a necessity by any means. We are surprised at the number of North American boats that don't carry whisker poles at all. Certainly where I come from, it's hard to imagine sailing without them. I don't know how you could. They keep the headsail steady. It doesn't thump and bang and crash around too much. So this probably is a bit of a saver for the headsail over many miles. Great piece of kit. have our bars. I don't know if there's a technical name for them. I call them granny bars. Hi Mum. These are just great security. It's also something to hold on when you're moving back and forth. Useful for tying jerry cans, outboards on and so on. And let's move back. One of the things that's probably affecting the sound quality of this video is the bloody birds in the background. In this town where we are now, which is Brunswick in Georgia in the US, the birds are horrendous. And if we have a look at the deck, I cleaned this morning. It's 11 o'clock now. Have a look at that. It's a never-ending battle. But such is life. Yes, they're entitled to be around here as much as I am. One of the things we do have, I've put on this boat is for use. I don't have a boom brake. I use a preventer, the old-fashioned traditional preventer line. Preventer lines go from the end of the boom forward to the bow, back to the cockpit, so that when you're sailing downwind and the boom's right out, it holds the boom out to hopefully prevent dangerous jives with the boom crashing from one side to the other. The challenge has always been though getting a line to the end of the boom. So what I've done here is I have this line permanently attached to the end of the boom. So when I want to rig my preventer line, we'll ease the main out. I'll undo the line here, make a bow line and attach it, which basically I can get to anywhere on the deck regardless of how far the boom is out. And then from that bow line and the separate line, we'll run the other line through to the foredeck and back to the cockpit. So I can set up a preventer without having to perform any gymnastics at the end of the boom. Okay, next bit. Electricity is a big thing on a modern boat like this because everything's electric. We've got an electric anchor windlass, electric primary winches, an electric halyard winch. We've got microwave, water maker, which is 110 volts. We run the gen set for that. Providing enough electricity is an ongoing issue. We have 4 solar panels, a total of 480 watts. When the sun's really cranking, they'll put out 40 watts theoretically. But, what we found is over a nice sunny day, you can probably expect an average of say 20 watts over 6 hours, so about 120 amps a day, 120 amps a day, which is enough for us when we're at anchor. It keeps the fridges running, keeps the telly running, for watching a movie at night and that kind of stuff. So yeah, got to have solar panels, really do. Wind generators, not a fan of at all, but solar panels, love them. One of the really simple pieces of gear we have on this boat is also very effective. Modern cruising boat, very high-sided, at a floating marina trying to get on and off, it would be quite an issue. If we didn't have a thing like this, this is a quick step, is the brand name. It's simply a piece of reinforced plastic which is secured with these lines. It provides a very surprisingly stable platform for getting on and off. I'm still fairly fit and flexible. I guess if I was much older and less flexible, I might have to have a secondary step, but that's a relatively simple piece of equipment, doesn't take up a lot of storage space, worth its weight in gold. Okay, one of the big issues with boats is where do you keep that bloody dinghy and the outboard? We've resolved it, or it's been resolved on this boat handsomely by this massive arch which covers a multitude of sins. Keeps our solar panels really, really sturdy and rigid. They're bolted on aluminium tubes onto this double stainless steel tube framing. We've got 7 aerials hanging up there. We've got a stern light hanging up there, and we've got the dinghy with a 15 horsepower outboard hanging off the back of there. And seriously, it doesn't move. It's as strong as. Which is really, really great. For long trips, we're probably going to take the outboard off, hang it on the transom rail, the push pit, and stick the dinghy upside down on the deck just in front of the dodger. But a solid goalpost like that is a wonderful feature on a boat like this. It's well worth its weight in gold. Right. Okay, it's a sailing vessel. Sailing vessels have lots and lots and lots of ropes, and there's never enough places to store them. And on a production boat like this, which I think the design feature is all about big flash fancy interior accommodation, they've overlooked this, so I've had to build a solution to that. And inside my lazarette locker here is something I've just recently constructed. Now I'm going to climb in, take the camera with me and show you. Okay, so I'm inside the lazarette now. What we've got here is I have built a range of these aluminium hooks which are screwed into pieces of plywood, which I've attached to the transom fiberglass with the 3M product 5300 or whatever, which apparently will last longer than the boats. Great place to hang the lines, keeps them out of the way, allows them to dry and drain, keeps them out of the sun. Very simple project. It took me half an afternoon, I think, to knock that up, and then a bit longer for it to be painted. But you know, it just keeps ropes out of the locker, provides me, frees up locker space. Great idea, great idea. Another piece of kit which I think is essential, certainly essential in the east coast of the US if you're doing the ICW. The ICW is like freeway traffic, it's rush hour, it's horrendous. One of my worst experiences in my life, I think, was the ICW. Got to have a VHF radio out in the cockpit. Fortunately we've got one mounted. If you don't have one mounted and you've got a VHF downstairs, I would really strongly suggest that you get a handheld one. But for the ICW in particular, you need a radio out in your cockpit. The rest of the time you can probably get by with one down below, but this has been very useful, coming up to bridges, notifying the bridge captains, all the boats going to and fro that you need to yell at to get out of your way. Great. Okay, one of the other features on this boat, a lot of the 473s have 3 cabins. There's a forward cabin and 2 quarter cabins. Our boat's only got 2 cabins, forward one and a port quarter cabin. What that means is we've got a bigger galley than the 3 cabin version, but we also have this wonderful area which we refer to as a garage, and I'm standing in it at the moment. Obviously, one of the features of it, I keep all of the various containers of engine parts, generator parts, alternator parts, fluids, paints, spares, bits and pieces, belts, whatever. I keep them in containers here, which are secured by this barrier to stop them tipping over when we heel. One of the other things we've got in here is the controls for the water maker, and behind this bulkhead are the high pressure pump motors and the wiring for the water maker, so it's relatively convenient, and we'll go and have a look at it now from the other end. Okay, so this is the garage from the other side. Jeanette's just brought in the camera from the galley. So I've showed you this stuff. In addition, down here I've got this big storage container where I keep the toxic fluids, like some spare oils. There's an oil change pump in there, which is very useful. Up forward of the garage here we have our main engine, which is in the middle of the boat there. We have these little storage containers alongside there, which are really useful for keeping of the domestic cleaning products, sponges, rags, and so on. Behind, this is a feature built into this boat. They've done quite a bit of remodeling, and behind the main engine is the generator. And a lot of boats, the generator would be sitting out here, which disturbs the weight balance and also eats into the space. So they've done some really clever engineering to get the generator in here, which is fantastic. Keeps it out of the way, still accessible for maintenance and so on. The other thing we have in here, which I scoffed at when we first bought the boat, but I'm beginning to think it's a fabulous feature, is our washer dryer unit. They're specifically built for RVs, I think, recreational vehicles, but also works well on a boat. It doesn't use very much water. The drying cycle's not hugely effective, but it's certainly better than nothing on the rainy days. So actually been quite a wonderful addition to the boat, and I'm beginning to like it a lot. The rest of the space basically will just gets filled up with a miscellaneous junk because there's never enough storage space on the boat. We'll probably keep our life raft and the valise down here when we're doing the big passages and so on. So that, folks, is the add-ons and bits and pieces that are non-standard on Echo Echo. I hope you enjoyed the little tour.